This is The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles, iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Christine Leahy is joining me on a day in which the Indianapolis Colts general manager, Chris Ballard, had a press conference earlier today and did not appear to be in a great mood. Chris Ballard thought he had Josh McDaniels as a head coach, and then last night, Josh McDaniels was no longer his head coach. Josh McDaniels will remain in New England as the coordinator for Belichick and Tom Brady. Chris Ballard held a press conference a couple of hours ago. He is clearly not happy. Here's a bite from it.
We were disappointed. Unquestionably, we were disappointed and surprised. We'd agreed to contract terms. We had an agreement in place. We followed all the rules, did everything right. Very confident Monday evening and Tuesday morning. I got a call Tuesday evening saying he had changed his mind and was going in a different direction. And at that point, I informed our owner. We informed y'all of where we were going, and we'll keep moving forward. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Chris.
The rivalry is back on.
Not happy. I texted him last night. He's bummed out because he knows it was going to work, and it was. It was going to be Goff McVay. It was going to be Shanahan and Garoppolo. It was going to be Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz. It was going to be Bill O'Brien and Deshaun Watson. It was going to work. It was going to be like Gruden and Derek Carr could be. When you get that offensive guy and that talented young quarterback, Andrew Luck, Josh McDaniels, you may think he's a jerk, and you may think Lane Kiffin's a jerk, but those guys are good, and they've rebounded, and they get torched in the press, and they get good jobs, and they always end up making people better. I will say this. If you're Andrew Luck today, what are you thinking? You come into this league as the number one pick because Indianapolis had the worst roster in the league, and you go 11-5, 11-5, and 11-5, and that third year you take them to the AFC Championship. They fire your general manager because he's incompetent. They get rid of your defensive coach because he's swell but can't win. You still only have one or two Pro Bowlers on the roster. And you were all excited. They were tweeting it out. We got a new coach. Andrew's got his man. And this morning, New England did it again. If you're Andrew Luck, do you feel a little bit like LeBron's first 6 or 7 years in Cleveland? You know, LeBron takes over as a number one pick like Andrew Luck comes to a team with a history of losing. You know, let's be honest, outside of Peyton Manning, Colts have been kind of sad. And then all of a sudden you're, dominant, win a bunch of games. LeBron doubled the Cavs' win total, wins Rookie of the Year. Andrew Luck goes 11-5. They get a playoff berth. Then about 6 years in, you're firing coaches. You don't have the right guy. And you wake up this morning, and you're looking for another great momentum builder, another block. It's masonry, right? It's the NFL. LeBron and Andrew Luck. This is why I say Andrew Luck. Why you quarterbacks rush to re-sign. Like LeBron's first 6 years in Cleveland, they just couldn't get stability, and they couldn't get him a guy. Andrew Luck's going into what, his 6th year, 7th year? They don't know who their coach is. The owner's impulsive. They got a new smart GM. He just got dogged by the Patriots. You still have an average offensive line. Running game is below average, but at least now it's close to average, and your defense stinks. LeBron left. I'm not saying Andrew Luck should, but I didn't understand 2 years ago when he rushed to sign a contract. And I don't understand why Aaron Rodgers rushed to sign a contract. You so rarely in life get leverage. You should at least consider using it. And with that, the man that knows Belichick better than anybody at any network. That doesn't always mean they loved each other. Eric Mangini, former Jets and Brown head coach. 3 rings with the Patriots and Bill Parcells. Let's just start with this. A lot of people are saying that Josh McDaniels, that guy's a jerk. And that guy's never get another job. So let me just ask you, in the coaching fraternity, what Josh McDaniels did, does it hurt him?
Well, it hurts him. And obviously there's guys that moved their families and took jobs there. Matt Eberflus, who's the defensive coordinator and was there, mid-January, and had some opportunities in Dallas to move up. Those things people understand, and there's other guys that thought they were coming in today and going to be part of that staff, and that doesn't work out. In terms of him not being able to get another job, though, I don't see it that way. The league has a way of forgiving. The league has a way of forgetting.
Yes.
And after when he finished up in Denver, everybody said he'll never get another job. Typically, when any coach is fired, the narrative is so bad they'll never get another job. And look, you win some games, some time goes by, people have very short memories, and then you're hot again.
Why do you think he spurned him? What is your belief that Kraft I don't think it's just money, Eric. He's got, is it just money?
No, it's not money, I think, at all. I think that first experience was really difficult. And then he goes to St. Louis and he has that experience. And then he goes back to New England, and it's a very comfortable place. It's a place that has taken a long time to be built and to operate that way. And if you're going to another organization and trying to build that organization in the same fashion that New England was built, which to me is the exact right way to build it in and has shown over time how successful it can be, it's difficult. And you need to absolutely be on the same page with the GM. And I like Chris Ballard a lot, but they don't know each other. That working relationship, you're not sure. You're getting married without spending a lot of time.
That's right.
With the person that you're getting married to.
And by the way, their owner has a history of being in Indianapolis impulsive.
Yeah, and you're going to get situations like that around the league where owners are impulsive. But I'm sure Josh took a step back and looked at this again and said, this isn't the right fit. And maybe it was looking for a situation like you saw in San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan, where he got to go in. He got to pick his GM. He was part of that process. I'm sure based off of where Josh's leverage was and how he was viewed, he thought that could have been more of the situation.
When you look at most people went to my Twitter account last night. Colin, Belichick is stepping down quickly. I don't know Belichick's relationship with Josh McDaniels. I don't see Bill necessarily as a mentor. He just wants you to do your job. But, does this signal to you that Bill is leaving sooner than later?
No, what this signaled to me is when I saw this, it was, okay, New England won last year's offseason. They're winning this year's offseason. Whatever the line in Vegas was for them to return to the Super Bowl just got a lot better because their ability to keep the biggest free agent that they have in Josh McDaniels, to me, signals, okay, they're doing it again. And all the talk about lacking unity, to me, this was a unifying event where Mr. Kraft, Bill, Tom, all put on their recruiting hats.
Do you think they all did?
Yes, yes, and got Josh to stay. And getting Josh to stay probably leads to Dante Scarnecchia staying on and Ivan Pierce staying on. And Skip and I disagree about the fact that when you lose two coordinators, it's a really difficult situation with him thinking that it's not as difficult in New England, but it is.
By the way, last time he lost both coordinators, Charlie and Romeo, they went 10-6. Like, it is a thing.
It is a thing. We saw it in Atlanta where they had to go through the same process. The interesting thing is maybe Charlie Weiss would have shown back up in New England if Josh had left. That to me is the attempt to try to bring
So you think Brady,
in.
Kraft, and Belichick all sat down, little surprise cupcakes, said, come on, here's more money, here's more love, little more mentorship, little more responsibility. Because I said today's National Letter of Intent Day, they basically flipped McDaniels. This is what college football coaches do today. Basically, they went in, and my takeaway with Kraft said, listen, they have an owner that's impulsive, I'm not. And they have a quarterback with a bad shoulder, and we don't. And it was like a recruiting day. It was a tug of war. I sell my stability. I promote their instability. They just flipped a coach instead of a defensive back from Texas.
Yeah, and it happens with free agency all the time. You don't want a free agent to leave your building and go to another organization.
I've heard that.
And you always want to, ideally, you're the last organization that person visits. But if you get them in the building, you don't want them to leave without a contract, because there's a good chance they could get flipped at the next spot. And this was recruiting. And it was smart for them to do, and it helps them significantly moving forward.
Kraft Belichick. What is that relationship? I mean, I can sit here and guess, and there's stories been reported that it's not always perfect, but they've been together 18 years. Marriages after 18 years have bad weekends. What do you think it is today?
It's a very effective relationship. It's a very productive, successful relationship. Does everybody see eye to eye with people that they work with? Does everybody see eye to eye with their bosses? No, but they've found common ground in an environment that has a lot of change, that has a lot of major decisions that have to be made. They found a way to work through that and be successful year in and year out. Is there going to be tension in any situation? Yes. Who doesn't have that? So the idea of it reaching such a dramatic impasse, I think that's overblown.
Would you have, okay, let's say you were the offensive coordinator for New England and Indianapolis offered you the job. Would you have taken it knowing what you don't know about Andrew Luck's shoulder? Would you have taken it? Would you stay with Brady? And let's say Kraft came to you, Eric, and said, Eric, you make 1.2. You're making 3.6. I'm going to overpay you. And go ahead, go in your interview. But you know what you have here. You don't know what you get. Would you have taken it? What is more attractive as a coach?
Well, first of all, Andrew Luck's shoulder hasn't changed in the last 2 weeks. Okay, the ownership hasn't changed in the last 2 weeks. And when Matt Eberflus went there and took that job, that to me was signing the contract. That's when the contract was signed, and it was pretty established that Josh was going to move on afterwards. Now, in terms of recruiting and saying, hey, his shoulder isn't as good as we expected.
You believe he committed knowing that 2 weeks ago?
Yes. Yeah, because
so do you think
once you start bringing coaches in,
okay,
do you think
less of Josh today?
I think that in the world of sports, people always want to judge other people for doing what's in their best interest. But at the end of the day, people do what's in their best interest, what they feel is right for them. And it's not always fair to everybody else involved, but it's pretty consistent. And it's a cutthroat world. The NFL operates that way. Coaches get hired and get fired in 1 year. Coordinators get hired and get fired, in 3 or 4 weeks. This is just the way it works. It works in college football that way, and it works in pro football that way, and everybody has their eyes wide open when they get involved.
Yeah, Chris Ballard didn't seem overly happy.
Look, I don't blame him. He's in a tough spot.
Have you ever promised to go somewhere? For here, I promised. Christy and I were telling this story. I know where I had lunch here, and I had lunch at a restaurant in Los Angeles, and I promised to the people. I'm not going to name their names of the company. I was coming here, but I still had a deal at the other place. And I had to go back to the other place, and they made me a pitch. And I remember just thinking some basic human decency. I'm like, I just can't lie to those people. I gave them my word. It doesn't matter what they are. And I remember going in for my last pitch at the other place, and I kind of made my mind up. I was like, out of respect for my boss, I'm like, okay, I'll sit down. But in the end, I couldn't have done what Josh did. And I'm not saying moralistically I'm superior. I'm saying I'm guilt-ridden with that kind of stuff. Like, once you're in, you're in. Like, I hear these guys that walk off the altar the day of the wedding. And I'm like, I'd just rather get married and divorced a year later. I can't do it. Could you do it?
When I became the defensive coordinator in New England, I went and spoke to Nick Saban down in Miami. And I went and spoke to Romeo Crennel in Cleveland. And I thought I was going to leave. I was prepared to leave at that point. And then the recruiting pitch kicked in, and it was very compelling. And I knew what I had in New England. I knew what the system was. It was comfortable. I understood that we were going to win on a consistent basis, and I made that decision to stay. Now, I hadn't committed to either one of the other clubs, but in my mind, I was moving on at that point. So I know that recruiting pitch can be very, very compelling.
Yeah. Mark Richt, the coach at Miami, used to be at Georgia, always told me, he goes, recruiting is just, I love you, and I want to show you I love you more than the other guy. You got to show people love. Adults, kids, you got to say, man, you mean a ton to me. Robert Kraft put on the syrup. I love you. You're part of my family. We've been together. We've won together. This is us. That stuff works with people.
And I wonder what would have been different if they had won the Super Bowl. I wonder if that would have changed the dynamic. I think when you go through an event like that and it doesn't work out, you can get that much more introspective. And and the idea of the finality of leaving a place that's been so good to you and been so good to your family. Those are hard decisions. When I left to go to the Jets as the head coach, it was a really hard decision. There were a lot of people that you had shared experiences with, you had great relationships with, and now you're moving on. And in the NFL, when you move on, those relationships change, and it was tough. It was tough, and
Did you cry when you drove from Foxborough to New York? Were you crying the whole way?
No, look. It was a great opportunity there.
They're paying you a lot of money.
There's a lot of upside to that decision too, but I do get the emotional aspect.
Yes.
Of it, and I think we've all gone through it in our lives when we transition somewhere.
Eric Mangini, good stuff. Good seeing you, Coach. Coming up next, what you're seeing happen to the Golden State Warriors should remind you we should be a little more patient with a guy we're always picking on. That's coming up next. If you've ever stumbled through a social media site around Valentine's, you know that women just love to show off what their boyfriend or husband surprised them with. That's what the copy says right here.
Flowers.
Of course. 1-800-Flowers.com.
You gotta get good ones.
Order early. 18 pink and red roses for $29. It's only 7 days away. Don't put it off. 18 pink and red enchanted roses, $29.99. Okay? And it's 1-800-Flowers. They're picked at their peak, and they're shipped overnight. And the reason they do that, to ensure freshness. But you got to order early. Don't butcher it. Limited supplies. This is the one time of the year there are limitations. You got to get on it now. To order 18 red and pink enchanted roses, $29.99. You got to go. Order today, 1-800-Flowers.com, code HERD, code HERD.